Throne. This is Gumbo, this is the Throne, and this is Gumbo's roadmap to success. Gumbo's a great little dog, as you can see. He has some issues. He's got a little lipstick coming out, and that doesn't always mean sexual. For male dogs, that just means I like what's going on. So this is a good indication he's had a positive association. Yes, I'm going to hold on to this treat to keep your attention, but it'd be better if you were up here. So we went over Gumbo, or Throne. We'll go ahead. And this is, I taught him how to use the dog bed. He already knew how to use the dog bed, but I showed his guardians how to use how to motivate him to come. Throw it. And I like using funny command words. Dogs are the only animal on the planet that can read human facial expressions, so try to come up with funny command words. Thrown, you say thrown and the dog just tackles the chair like he just did, your friend's going to have milk coming out of their mouth and laughing so hard, and that's what we like. So the way I did this, at first I just threw about 10 treats, and he just kept on coming over and licking them up. Gumbo. Puppy, puppy. Gumbo. 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 There you go. There we go. But again, it's funny when he does that. So come up with a list of your official command words, tape in your refrigerator, and anytime somebody's saying, come here, you say, come. Or you say vocabulary person, thank you, and come. We want to use one-word commands, and remember the dog hears the first word you say, so instead of saying good come, just say the word come, don't conjugate. Come, that's passive training, we'll talk about that in a second. So the first thing we talked about was exercise. The guardians have actually used one of my tricks is throwing treats up and down the stairs, but I showed them how to kind of max it out. Actually, I guess I should go to this one first. Let's complete my train of thought. So I threw about 10 treats, and every time the dog licks it up, we would say the word thrown. Remember, anytime you give your dog a treat, the treat should go in their mouth first. They should hear the command word immediately after, preferably within 3 seconds. So I threw treats here, and after a while, he started kind of lumbering over here. Gumbo. Gumbo. Change your octaves can help as well. Yes. How about I come over here? Let's put you on my lap. It'll be awfully funny to watch. Come here. Come here. Gumbo. Here, buddy. Yes. Oh, yes. I'm going to get you up here. Oh, yes, you're a whole lot of dog, aren't you? Yes, you are. This looks better when I have a dog in my lap, especially as accosting me. Yes. All right. So, the first stage is to throw the treats there. The second stage is to leave a treat, and when he's not seeing it, and just wait for him to discover it on his own. We'll see if he settles down. And the third way was to lead him into it, put him in a sit or an LAY, and every time he did, we would give him the treat and say the word thrown. Now, the next stage is when he goes on his own. All right, I'll let you down, buddy. Whoa, sorry about that. When he goes on his own, then we would throw a treat. So now when I come here, it rains treats. You can do the same principle with the dog bed that's on the floor. I would also recommend that you come up with a word for the door. He doesn't like going through the doorway. I think he's, part of it is, I think he's learned how to control his humans by just turtling up and sitting down. He's a big anchor. So teaching him to go there, independent of going through the door, and just come up with a word, reservations or whatever you want to say. And after a while, just get up, you're watching TV, get up, grab a treat, go over there, Gumbo, he comes and sits down, give him a treat, say reservations, then go back to sitting down. So we do these things out of context in this capacity to help him practice, because he's like, well, I don't want to go through the doorway. We're not going through the door, we're just teaching you to come over here. Now I did also go through, I'll go through exercise and stuff as well, but we went over teaching him how to come. Now he comes kind of when he wants to, but teaching a dog, if he doesn't want to go through the doorway, having him rep that, and I think for a lot of the reason he doesn't want to go through there is because he thinks we're going for a walk or going in the car or something he really likes or doesn't want to do. So we want to practice passing through the portal over and over again without actually going for a walk. So when we talk about exercise, these guys are more athletic than most people think they are. And just noticing that he has no tail whatsoever. And so basically what we want to do is find out how much exercise he needs. So I recommend starting an exercise journal. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Remember the different things you can do, throwing the treats up and down the stairs. The laser seems to be something that would be appropriate for him. Playing fetch is also a great one. And then scent games. And I would have you just Google scent games and find a couple of them. And before there are books and DVDs you can find as well, but it's not that hard. And that can be very draining for him. So keep that journal for a couple weeks, start maxing it out, or rating him, and eventually come up with a behavior that you're looking for. All right, we also talked about rules. He really didn't have very many rules. He had a couple, which is more than most of my clients can't come up with a single rule. So rule number one, not to rely on the furniture for at least 3 months, if not, or as long as the problem's going on. How often does he do that? does he come and like drag his shoulder along the side of the couch? That's scent marking. That means it's essentially him peeing on your couch. So you should disagree with that, and I want you to disagree with it the same way. I have a woman filming, same way you would if somebody touched you inappropriately. I want you to have that like offended and very suddenness. A lot of times you're like, stop. No, we don't really mean it. Stop. You want that sort of energy. Hey, buddy. Remember to lower your hand to the floor, raise it over his head, put it in a sit, and then pat him and give him a treat and say sit or come or whatever it is. Just keep doing what you're doing. Yes, let me use this for you. So a lot of times when we're holding a dog, we're holding a leash and the dog pulls and the arm moves. It gives them the illusion of progress. Gumbo. Puppy, puppy, puppy. Gumbo. Gumbo. There we go. Yes, my happy Gumbo. I think he thinks he's a little bit of a security dog. Come here, buddy. I'm going to bring you back over here. And I'm not going to pull him because that would create a negative association. So what I would do is I've got the leash. Once he comes over here, come. I can step on the leash, and now he's not going to feel like he's making progress every time I pull. Now he's going to probably, the guardians have kind of done a little bit of this, but holding it, and so he tries to wiggle himself out of his collar. All right, so the recall exercise, you want to hold, make sure your forearm is parallel to the floor, curl your fingers up a little bit, and the lower I go, the more curl I have. So from his perspective, it looks like I have something in my hand. Now don't fool him with this too much because after a while then he'll just, I just see that hand thing. So the lower you go, Gumbo, the more it's for the dog. Then I raise it an arc over the head to put him in a sit. Then I lower it, let him lick it off my hand, and I tickle him under the chin and say the word sit. I'm only stepping on this because you're trying to photobomb and she's got to hold the camera without you being in it. We like it in the shop, but not that close. Okay, so practice the recall. At first, just try to do it with at least 3 people. If it's just 2 of you, when you're watching TV, somebody gets up, come over here, open the box. When he comes to you, give him that treat and say come. But eventually it'd be nice if you would have one person sitting there, one person over by the basketball, one person in the kitchen, one person in the bedroom, and you're calling him. He's got to come beyond line of sight, and he doesn't know who he's coming to. So if he comes to me and he's calling, I just cross my arms like this and look up and become boring. He's like, but I know you got more treats. Yeah, but you need to go to who's calling you. That's who's going to pay you the treat. And after a while, then yes, he is a big boy. Earlier, the video above when we set that up, I'm like, so step on both feet. And the guardian's like, well, he's a pretty big dog. I don't know, he might be able to do it. You are a big boy, but you're not fat. You're just a whole lot of man. All right, so let me see. So for that recall exercise, at first, if he won't come, you want to start people about 7 feet apart, but gradually make it a little bit bigger until eventually he's coming right away whenever you call him. And then we're going to supplement that with that passive training, which I'll talk about here in a minute. So we talked about some rules. If a dog doesn't have any rules, it sees you as a peer, and if it sees you as a peer, then listening to you is now optional. And I think that's very much what's going on. This breed of dog is very determined. I don't like using negative words. So basically, the more that we enforce rules consistently, the more the dog sees us acting like a leader, even if it's blocking them from doing things they want to do. So one of the rules I would say is not being on the furniture for at least 3 months or as long as the problem's still going on, and then after that with an invitation only. If the humans are eating on the couch, the dog should not be allowed on the carpet while they are eating food. The rest of the time I can come and go, but not when they're eating. When they're eating, cooking food here, I would probably put some painter's tape, like maybe from there to this corner, and then from the corner of the workout to the angle there, so that L is off limits when we're cooking food. For dogs to be within 7 feet of anybody who has food or high value items, way of challenging for that item. So you saw, because he's not able to make that progress in my arm, he's not pulling so much, and he's going to probably settle down here in a sec, which is good because we want you in the shot. You're so handsome. You're probably the most handsome English Bulldog there is. All right, so, and again, determined. Crash, that's passive training. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, other rules, let me see, you have to sit at the door. Do that for each and every door that you have. Make sure that you're eating before you feed him. Now, he's been free-fed, and just so you know, he's out of water. And so that's okay, but just so you know. So make sure that when you put the food down, and block him the way I showed you here. Don't let him eat, and then you give a chip, cracker, something crunchy, preferably. You eat in 5 more bites, or your actual meal, but he's not allowed to go to his food that's waiting there. There's nothing but air between him and his food. Then when you get done, you invite him over to eat, and when he comes over and sniffs it, at that point he's on the clock. He has you can give like 5 minutes to eat maximum if he stays there. that him? Okay. And then if he sniffs it and walks away, as soon as he walks away, pick up the bowl, dump it empty, and put the empty bowl back down. You don't eat again until the next meal. It's not ethical to withhold food from a dog, but creating conditions, I guess, is the word that I'm not really looking for, but it accomplishes what I want. But it helps the dog understand that I have to eat after the humans, which dogs eat in the order of their rank, and also the human controls the food, which elevates you more as an authority figure, and I'm not allowed to go near it when you're eating, so I'm practicing some self-control. This is a little bit of a lack of self-control, and this is very cute. When he does this, you can call it passive training if you want, but I wouldn't do it for this because I want to go jump up in front of the camera, I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, I want to date a supermodel, and that's not happening for me either, buddy, so you and I are both going to have to figure this out. So, all right, so that's those are some examples of some rules, and the more that you enforce those, remember those rules should be in place for at least 66 days. Another rule is he sleeps on the bed, but he doesn't have the dexterity or the athletic ability to get up. It's a really high bed. So you can get one of those little bench, little ramp that you can put up to the side of the bed and he can walk up and down. What I would do is I wouldn't put that there. I go get in bed, undress, do your nighttime ritual, get in bed whenever you're comfortable, then, or maybe right before you get in bed, you move it over there and then give him the invitation to come on the bed. And when he's on the bed, he should kind of go where you want him to go. I have a lot of people like, the dog likes to have his butt right here. I'm like, well, there's a whole lot of floor for you if that's how you want to sleep. If I'm sharing my bed with you, you're going to sleep kind of where I want you to sleep, which is this designated place. Remember, children go through life probing to see what they can get. Dogs go through life probing to see where the boundary is and who the leader is. Okay, you can hang out down there. All right, so one of the dirty secrets I learned from dog behavior a long time ago is outlasting the dog. Every time you let the dog outlast you, you're just punting, and it's gonna take harder. It's gonna be harder in the future to do that, to accomplish what you want. Now, if a dog is barking, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're amplifying, or if you give it attention. But what if your dog's demand barking? Does he demand bark? He bark at you for attention? So if he does that, she pants about it, I love it. Okay. It's video for you, that's all right. You can talk. Okay. But if he's demand barking, that's the one time you disagree. So anything your dog's doing when you give it attention or pet is what you're rewarding, but anything your dog does in your presence that you don't specifically disagree with, you're saying I'm cool with. Mm-hmm. So make sure you disagree right away, and like we talked about in the analogy with the carpet, that you're disagreeing immediately. Don't let him bark, 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 and he's like, well, the fourth bark is what she doesn't like, so it needs to be consistent. Now, we also talked a little bit about maintenance. Now, we're on the second story, and a lot of dogs, if they're in a higher position, that can give me an illusion that they're a guard dog. So a lot of times what we do is what we call Roman compliance, and the guardians here have done what a lot of my guardians do, is they built a little platform and they put chairs right by the window, and they're saying, he loves doing that. Well, there's a lot of things that I might love doing that aren't probably good for me. And so, in this case, he has a lack of impulse control, and he got the illusion of freedom, and I think it helps him think he's a guard dog. So I would take that away from him temporarily. There's other things that he can do that are probably more appropriate and healthy for him to do to channel his energy into. So just get that Roman blind, just white paper, or you can go to Lowe's, they make a sticker that you kind of put on that makes it look like frosting. But just put it in the bottom part of your window, just enough so he can't see over it. That way you get light to come through and we can still look out. We're taller than he is. Sorry, buddy. And so that way, and after a couple months of him getting out of the habit of jumping on the couch to look down and bark at people, now his new habit is to go here on the throne, or to hang out on, in Baton Rouge, or whatever the name of the dog bed is going to be. And so he gets out of that habit, and then we can also, work on the targeting exercise, a lot of the other stuff that we went over in this session. Let me see. We also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if he comes up and nudges me or paws at me for attention and I pet him, I'm telling him that he's in charge of me, and if he's in charge of me, then he certainly doesn't have to listen to me. So next time he paws or nudges you for attention, give him a counter order, tell him to sit. When he sits, pet him under his chin, say the word sit, and only the word sit, and not sit, just sit. And then you pet him as much or as little as you want. You have to pet him at least once to as many times as you want. And then after a while, he'll start realizing I can't tell them, I have to ask for it. Attention. Not only do I have to ask, I have to pay for it through doing something for them. And he'll start coming and sitting in front of you or laying down. Now, when he comes to you, make him sit or lay down. Don't do the paw or the buddy, or I can't remember what you guys call it, but that's, I think, going to confuse him a little bit. Sit or lay down are great ways to get the human to give your attention. If your friend comes over and he's used to pawing, for the pound or the dab or what you would call it, well, he does that to your guard, she's like, well, shit, I'm wearing a nice dress and he's scratching He comes and sits in front of her, and you're like, oh my God, he used to come up and accost me. Now he just sits to ask for attention. What happened? You're like, of course, we hired David from Doggone Problems. He showed us how to condition the dog what we want. But that's really what it is it's a matter of repetition and consistency. To shape behavior, as we call it. So dogs go through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward, but even if you're in that window, it might have to be repeated over and over again. So consistency is super duper important. So make a list of the command words and paper the refrigerator and say vocabulary if you're using a different version of the word. To a dog, come here, or come here, over here, good boy, dog name. We come up with all these versions of asking dog to come, going outside, or go potty, is kind of the guardians here use interchangeably. Well, they mean specific things, so let's say what we actually mean. So come up with that list of vocabulary words. That'll make it easier for him to learn. And when he does the thing you want, say just the command word, not good sit, just sit. And that'll help him learn faster. Getting back with petting with purpose. So if you want to pet the dog, or the dog is telling you to pet him, you're going to give him a counter order, and if he complies, within 3 seconds, you pet him under his chin and say the word, and then he gets petted as much or as little as you want. If he doesn't comply, show him you have other things to do. Lean back on the couch, watch TV, read about New Orleans, do whatever you want to do, and after he starts complaining, then ask him to do it, or tell him better to do it again. After a while, he's like, man, they're not petting me anymore unless I do something. But as soon as I sit, they're all over me. That's passive training. So passive training is every time he does things that you want, pet him within that 3-second window and say it. Every time he takes a drink of water, call it happy hour. Every time he eats a bite of food, call it étouffée or whatever you want to say. It's the only Cajun dish. Po' boy, that's the only other thing I know. But after a while, you could say water or whatever it is, and he'll go over and drink the water. And name all of your individual toys. Call the basketball your favorite, basketball player or whatever it is. Call it Jordan. Best, of course, he's the best of all time. Anyway, so the more that we reward him for desired behaviors, the more he's going to be wanting to engage in those, because that's the fastest way to get my attention. Most of us train our dogs to misbehave because it comes to us, we ignore it. It sits down in front of us, we ignore it. It brings us a toy, we ignore it. As soon as it starts barking, we correct it. As soon as it's chewing the carpet, we correct it. And speaking of correction, a lot of people correct their dogs for growling. And a growl is the antithesis of aggression. It's saying, I'm uncomfortable. I'm growling to say, if you continue, I'm going to have to take the next level, but I don't want to. If you punish your dog for growling, they will often go straight to a bite and won't give a warning. So when your dog growls, you should be like, thank you. Oh, you don't like the lawnmower? Let's move further away. The more that your dog sees that you're getting him out of trouble, the less that he thinks that it's his job. The more you enforce rules with him and with other situations, the more he sees you're acting like leader, and then his job is not needed. And the more you reward him with desired behaviors, the more that those are the things he's going to do to get your attention, as opposed to all these other things. Now, I did a little of a CER for the harness that he's still wearing now. And so remember that when you're doing that, you're flipping, so only one hand is in front at a time. And you can kind of put the treat in his mouth like a cash register or a vending machine or something like that. But practice that a couple times a day and put it on him, and don't go for a walk. Put it on him and take him out for potty. Take him out into the car just wearing his regular collar. So you kind of want to mess with him so he gets kind of used to doing all these different things. That's a good indication he's comfortable. Dogs, when they lean against you, that's a sign of endearment. And he's tired. This has been a long day for him. So we also went over, getting him to come to the door. We went through a targeting exercise. Remember, when you're doing that, when you chop your hand, you can't move this hand. So don't chop it, come back to a treat, because he's going to follow your hand. You want to go where your hand is, and then when he's touching it, then you take the treat and then put it in the slot machine there. Remember, the progression is turn, lean, step, steps. And eventually you should be able to get him come from quite a bit away. Don't use it as a recall too much. It's like your backup in case he's not listening. Well, like for the doorway, portals are hard for a lot of dogs. So practice your come independent of leaving, and just having him cross through the door, and then across through the door, take a couple steps, and then a couple steps more, a couple more steps, and then eventually the bottom of the steps. Then sometimes he goes outside, and there's a pile of treats there, and he gets to run all the way back inside. And so we just want to make going outside such a pleasurable experience, he has no problems with that. When you put the harness on him, once you do actually start attaching it, say it tux. I think tuxedo is the word the guardian's going to use, which is awesome. And the idea is, again, we create that positive association. Now, I'm going to kind of talk about this. I talked about it really, I demonstrated in the video above. But remember, if he's reactive, actually, there's a couple things. When we're near the other location where there's the other dog, when his energy level passes level 5, remember to stop, grab him, put him on a leash, and don't do it in an aggressive way. Just go over, put him on a leash, or call the other dog if he won't come to you. Have the other dog come to you, then put him on a leash, and then take him further away from the other dog. Anytime it's just reactive, you have to increase the distance until he will sit and take a treat. Those are my 2 litmus tests, or quiver like this. No, don't do that. But if he won't sit or take the treat, he's too worked up, or the stimulus is too close. So keep increasing the distance, and sometimes you'll have to move outside of line of sight so he can't see it. Wait for him to come back down to like level 1 energy, then let him play again. So if you keep on giving him a break every time he passes level 5 energy, after a while I realize if I keep it at 4.9 or less, the good times will keep on going. And then instead of him getting too worked up, it's easier for him to calm himself down. If I'm arguing with somebody and we've been arguing for 10 minutes, it's going to take me a long time to settle down because I'm emotionally attached to that argument. If somebody comes in the room and says, hey, we're not talking about Donald Trump, I'm like, okay. I'm not involved in it, I'm not escalated, so it's easy for me to let it go. The higher you let his energy level go on that spectrum, the harder it is going to be, and longer it's going to be for him to take it down a notch. I'm trying to think what other things we went over. What I was going to say earlier. If he is reluctant to do something, try not to pull him, and remembering all these other things. Remember to practice the drop. Every time he has something in his mouth, just go over and hold it, and pop it in his mouth and say drop. If he's ever reactive, he's pulling behind, he doesn't want to come with you, and we pull him, we're telling him we're not listening to him, we're going to activate his opposition reflex, which programs him to pull away. It's really not going to help. So take note of the environment. Oh, there's another dog, there's a lawnmower, there's the garbage disposal, or whatever it is. There might be a reason for it, and then we can come up with a way. If he doesn't like the sound of the garbage disposal, then maybe we use the classical conditioning I mentioned earlier, salute. So maybe we give him a treat, turn the garbage disposal on for a second. Now this is, and if you're watching, I know that I'm doing a little bit different. Some people get mad at me when I do counter conditioning a little bit different. You should basically, well, I'll explain it. So what I do is I want the dog not to run away. So I might go over the door and then give, whatever the activity is, he's afraid of a sound, I might crinkle a sound, or I give him a treat and then crinkle the sound. And I'm doing it so low that he's not reactive to it. And then eventually after I do that, when he's not reactive when I crinkle it, then I crinkle it, then I give him the treat. That's the proper way to do counter conditioning. So the stimulus is an indication of a positive or reinforcer that's going to come after that. I know, buddy, we're almost done. If he is reactive to something like that, you can try to use counter conditioning to help him get comfortable with that. If you don't know how to do that, just message me. I'm happy to share videos, or I can talk you through it over the phone. The last thing I want to talk about is basically, is if he's telling you he's uncomfortable with something, remember I want you to break the activity down to the most basic fundamental steps that you possibly can. My toes are not that long, or strong. And practice step number 1 over and over and over again until he's behaving the way you want. Only then go to step 2. And then practice that one. And this might take several practice sessions till eventually it gets to the point where he is behaving the way you want for each individual step along the process in the easiest capacity possible. Then we come back and practice it again, all the steps together, and then we gradually start raising the criteria until eventually he's comfortable and confident with whatever it is. Now the treats that I have are chicken liver training treats from CloudStar. They're called Tricky Trainers, and you get those on Amazon or Chewy. So I would recommend you get some of those because you really like those. And remember, for the dog park, again, slow down the process. Get to the dog park, just sit in the car and wait for him to stop whining, and then leave and come back home. And the more that you break things down to small steps and with practice, the more comfortable you're going to feel with it, the better at it he's going to get. And eventually he'll just start offering the behavior that you want without any inclination, without any motivation. He'll have motivation. He'll just do the things you want. It's a long day. It's Friday. It's Memorial Day or Labor Day weekend. I get a couple of days off. Let's see photo bombs. Let's see if we can get Gum. We got to look over there. Gumbo. Come up here. Come on, up, throne. This is Gumbo, and this is Gumbo's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you need it.